Hoof listeners, what is going on? Headed into week 14 after the bye week. Kind of nice just to watch football with no worries, kind of a neutral stance all week. Obviously, you have your rooting interests, but really just watching other teams make mistakes, other teams get bad calls from the refs,
Yeah,
other
right. Yeah, that's
coaches making
true.
mistakes. It's kind of nice, right? Kind of a
Yes.
stress-free football weekend.
Yeah, even the games that you're invested in, you're still not nearly as invested as the team you root for, right? In this case, our Bills. Yeah, so it was like, a weekend of relaxing football. Interesting to watch without, my blood pressure going through the roof or, nearly having a heart attack at some plays or screaming at the TV. I got a lot done around the house too, which is good, in
Nice.
prep for baby. So
Oh yeah, coming
got to get it
soon.
done. Yeah, right.
Coming soon. Hopefully it doesn't happen Sunday.
I know, right? I already told
Or
Kathy's like,
25.
"What happens if it's during the game?" I'm like, they have TVs at the hospital.
Yeah.
I'm not worried."
Yeah. Called
She's like,
cell
"You're
phone.
not watching the game." Like, "Yes, I am. If the game's on, I'm gonna have the TV there or on
Yeah.
my phone." Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd be screaming. That's good. That'd be chaotic, right? Yelling
That
and
would be
screaming at
nuts.
the TVs, biggest game of the season, right? Arguably.
Yes,
But also like
certainly.
doctors and stuff. I mean,
That's
baby
certainly the
coming
worst
out. I
case
mean,
scenario, but it would
yeah, that
be.
could get ugly real quick.
She
You
would
you
be.
might I've seen you almost pass out from Bills games a few times. This might be the moment where it actually happens.
My baby girl would definitely come out in Bill's gear for that. Yeah, that would be epic.
Anyway, let's just hope it doesn't happen that way, but would be a great story if it did.
Absolutely. Yeah, for the rest of her life she'd be hearing it for sure.
Anyway, a lot to get to tonight. We had some really good the Sunday night game and the Monday night game. Chiefs, Packers, Jaguars, Bengals were actually very good games this week.
Yeah.
Because normally the night games have been kind of slow. There's only been a few that have been really close, but these two games were phenomenal.
Great
right?
prime
Both of
time.
them
And
on
even
big.
the Thursday game this week, that Dallas-Seattle game, like we said, was an epic game too, right? Like that was
Right.
down to the wire and could have gone Seattle's way a couple of times, but way, way more competitive and high scoring than most people thought. But yeah, nice prime time, nationwide games this week.
And I wish we could say like, oh, the teams made plays, but really it's just the story that comes to mind first is the referees. At least for Seattle,
Mhm.
Dallas, and Green Bay Chiefs, the refs really just had a major role in the outcome.
Yeah.
Right.
And a lot of plays. It's unacceptable. We've continued to talk about it. The refs, man.
But that's the story. It's like it's not Pat Mahomes drives his team down the field and has a chance to win it at the end. That's not the story. The story is there's two questionable calls in one drive that directly impact the outcome, right? And I just hate that that's where where football is now. You know what I mean? But I mean, if you do think back to all the times Tom Brady drove his team down, won the game, there was a lot of questionable calls back then too.
Sure.
You just don't remember it that way. Yeah, so kind of interesting, but I feel like these two games that the refs just stick out, and we're gonna remember it for a long time.
Yeah, this whole season it's been really rough, the roughest with the refs. I feel like we say that every year, but it's certainly. I think I tweeted that it's just fanning the flames for the conspiracy theorists who think it's because of the gambling money, and it's not. That's a reasonable theory to have. I mean, you're talking billions of dollars on the line, and these refs do not get paid. It's not their full-time job. It's
right.
I mean, they get paid, but not paid well. It's ridiculous.
If you think people are being sneaky, if you think the refs are being sneaky or the NFL is being sneaky, it's much, much more likely that they're just stupid.
Exactly.
Exactly. And to pull off something like rigging games in favor for Vegas, that's a huge undertaking. You get caught once, it's fucking over. So it's like I just really think they're just stupid, and it's just kind of a disorganized system. And we talked about this. The game's overregulated.
Yeah.
Right. So the refs are just in a horrible position. Everyone can see the field better than them. Right. And it's an overregulated game. The rules are just so complicated. It's like,
and they
really,
don't.
There's no way they can get it perfect. There's no way.
They don't do replay well. They don't give the refs the opportunity. The refs aren't full time. We talked about this. I went on a rant about this, 3 weeks ago now, and it's still prevalent. It's like, come on,
for sure.
Make the refs full time. Do what is best for them. Invest the money where you need it. Get somebody who can replay automatically, and they can call on site and say, okay, no, that was this or it wasn't that. Here's the look, so you can confirm. it's just stupid the way it's done right now. And we have the capability to make it better, and they won't. Right? That's what's frustrating.
Yeah.
Hopefully, this offseason, the owners are like, we're sick of hearing about this.
Right. Well, I feel like it is getting some traction this year, unlike other years. Like,
Correct.
I feel like
It's
they
just,
have no choice but to make some.
it's in the
changes,
national
but-
media. Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's in the eyes of these nationally televised games now. It's like,
Mhm.
where is the best officiating crews that you had on these
Right.
games? Now it's
Right.
every crew, right, is not doing well.
Yeah. So definitely interesting, but we'll keep an eye on that for sure. Another huge highlight from the weekend. You were 5-0 on your Sunday picks.
Yes, it was awesome. I mean, the pick six did really well this week. 5-0, ended up 5-1 because I did pick the Jaguars, and unfortunately, with that injury at the end of the game, I was just like, oh well, that's not going to happen now. But 5-1 is a freaking amazing week. We're back above 60% on the year, which is awesome. Epic. That's anything above 50 is great, and to be at 60 again, that's amazing. And I want to keep this going, obviously, for the rest of the year. But just to recap quickly, my number 6 bet of the week was the Colts and Titans. I took the Colts -1. That game went into overtime. Titans had the ball first. My rooting interests are with the Titans, obviously, because I'm a Bills fan, and I'm like, hey, the Titans win, the Colts get knocked down a pig, okay. But the Colts, I'm like, no matter what way this game ends up, at least I'm good, because I bet the Colts. I believe the Colts were going to win, and they ended up kicking the field goal and winning. So that paid off. Colts -1, and they won by 3. So the fifth bet of the week was the Lions -4 at the Saints. The Lions they were up, I think, like 28-7 in the first half. And then the Saints slowly came back, but the Lions put them away at the end of the game. So the Lions covered that as well. Again, a little bit exciting toward the end, but pretty comfortable. My number 4 bet of the week was the Jaguars, who ended up losing, right? Jaguars -8.5. That was a tough loss. However, I was already 5-0 going into that, so felt good. Would have been nice to get the clean sweep, but we're cool with 5 and
Right.
and
We talked
1.
about that. Like, the Bengals without Joe Burrow, don't think they're Super Bowl contenders. Probably not going to win a
Still good.
playoff game.
Yeah.
Still a good team. Can still run the ball. Still plays good defense. And Jamar Chase will have a couple plays. So I mean, they're still a contender.
Yeah.
As far as getting to the playoffs, if they do get there, I don't think they can compete. But
yeah, and I think if the Jags again were healthy throughout the game, and they lost Christian Kirk to an injury now, he's out for a while.
Yep.
If they were healthy for that game, I still like the Jags to win that game.
Right, they missed a
competitive,
field goal too,
but they missed a couple. Yeah, so that was my only loss on the week. Then we go to number 3. So my top 3 bets all won. This was a great 3-way parlay. The best payouts for me for the week. The 3 bet was the Falcons -2 at the Jets. That one paid off. It was close at the end. The Jets had a rally, but they were, what was the final score? Like 8-12 or something. Good enough, right? That's exactly what I thought it was going to be. Low scoring, but good win for the Falcons. The Texans -3 at the Broncos was my number 2 bet of the week. And you know how I feel about my Texans, man. I absolutely love this. And that game was a great game to watch. It was my first game getting to watch all of CJ Stroud, which was good to see, and really see that he is as good as advertised and as good as I thought he was coming into the season.
Yeah, they look good. And really, like, what comes to mind for me is, how does Sean Payton getting the Broncos in a position to win every game?
Yeah, they were in
They're
it
right there again. It's
like,
what
down to the wire.
doing?
The last play of the game was an interception, right, in the end zone. Well, I guess they kneeled down after that, but yeah, the last offensive play for the Broncos, they were right there knocking on the door.
Right.
A touchdown puts them ahead, and instead, he throws.
What if Sean Payton's available to coach the Bills? That'd be nice.
Ooh, jeez, yeah, in your dreams. But yes, right, like that would have been epic if we had had that ability. But that was my number 2 bet of the week. And then my big bet of the week, I got a lot of pushback on this one, actually. The Cardinals +5.5 at the Steelers. And I said on our show, I think the Cardinals are going to win. So the fact that they're getting 5.5 points, to me, that's an easy bet. That's why it's my number 1 bet of the week. And, a couple people were like, well, I don't know, the Steelers defense, the Steelers are good. And the Cardinals crushed them, right? I mean, they beat them handedly start to finish. So that was my big bet of the week. And knowing that I got that win certainly made the rest of the games a lot easier. But 5-1.
Not a good look for the Steelers, that's for sure.
No, yeah, and again, another one that helped the Bills, obviously, but I just felt like the way the Cardinals were playing and the ineptitude of the Steelers' offense was not a good combination, and that is exactly how that game kind of played out. So, the James Conner revenge game, if you will. Right?
Right.
Yeah, so he had two touchdowns in that game too. So, excellent week for the Pick Six, 5-1. We're looking to keep that energy going. I've already got 3 or 4 games lined up for week 14 that I am ready for. I've already put in bets for. So you'll hear that on Thursday when we post that and go through our picks. But yeah,
you can
looking
find that
forward to
on
keeping it going.
the Hoof Podcast YouTube channel every Thursday. Definitely check that out. Just a quick clip, free money.
There you go.
3
Putting
to 5
it out
minutes.
to the people.
Yep, exactly. All right, so then the big question, which we've been hearing, which everyone's talking about, did the Bills win the bye week? What are the Bills' playoff chances now after week 13? Talk about this every week now, but this is the big storyline around the Bills. They had a couple of good losses. You mentioned the Steelers. I mean, you could argue the Broncos or the Texans, both good.
Right, but the odds were better if the Texans won. Now,
right.
For example, because the Jags lost, the Texans have a chance to win the division. The Jags could fall out of it. That would be even better, right? So Texans were definitely the team we were rooting for in that one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. It's kind of the first time I've heard that. But Cleveland loses as well. That definitely benefits the Bills, even though they are up still one full game. And any other help? You said the Jaguars lost. So Cincinnati winning, I'm not sure if it was a good thing. And then the Colts won as well.
Right.
So those are both bad. And that Colts game did come down to overtime.
Very close, yeah.
Could have been a totally different result. And I think Indianapolis would be, right now they're at the 7, sitting in that 7 seed. But I think if they lost, it kind of would have fell apart for them. Their record's better than what they've played. But in the NFL, I don't think it matters. It is what it is. You
find a way to win.
This team didn't, right? So this is how it goes.
And I think they have a matchup with the Bengals, coming up, and it's like, oh, okay, they lost
next week, week 14. So
yeah,
so that's good either way. Steelers play Thursday night. Texans take on the Jets. Jaguars play the Browns, which is good. And that's about it. The Bills got to beat the Chiefs, right? But how are we feeling about the playoffs now after? Look, Pittsburgh's quarterback done. I'm not sure if he's scheduled to come back. He had surgery, so I think he's probably done for the year, right? Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, you would argue that could help them, though. I would argue that could help them anyway.
Maybe. I mean,
so yeah,
change quarterbacks mid-season. It's not a good thing,
right?
Joe Flacco now for Cleveland.
Again, probably the better option for them. He looked decent, better than what they've played, but you can't rely on a 80-year-old Joe Flacco either. So
we know Jake Browning had a great game. Is it sustainable for Cincinnati? Remains to be seen. And then now Trevor Lawrence likely going to miss a couple weeks with a high ankle sprain. Is this just like partying the Red Sea for the Bills to come and get in the playoffs?
It certainly is. They're trying, right? They're trying. The other teams are trying. But the problem is there's so many of them that there's still a doomsday scenario where if the Bills don't win out, they could miss, right? If you go 4-1, you're likely in. We've talked about that for the Bills. You're likely in. But there's still a scenario where you go 4-1 and the dominoes fall the right way, and 3 of those teams end up with the same or better records, and they're going to be above you. So, you could be on the outside looking in even at 4-1. 5-0, you control your own fate at that point.
You have a chance to win the division if you can get to 11, right? The Dolphins still play Dallas. They still play Baltimore. I mean, there's a chance they can win the division still. It's not over yet.
Correct.
Unlikely. But again, it's all on Buffalo. You got to win all your games. And like you said, you can afford to lose one, and that's it. 9-8 is not going to get it done this year.
No, not even close. Not with the competition. Like you've said, so many teams that are in the hunt, that are there, that are in better situations than the Bills, that have better matchups coming up than the Bills do. Yeah, it's not an ideal situation to be in, but I enjoyed, I wouldn't say I feel better about it. I probably feel the same, but I enjoyed that the teams losing that helped the Bills did lose, and there were a couple there that didn't, but I still felt good about, like, the Colts. I just feel like it's going to catch up with them eventually. For example, I think I even tweeted that out during that game. And then, we'll see how this Jaguars injury plays out in the the Bengals and Browns still in it and still have tough games. So yeah, it's going to be a week to week, watch the scoreboard, see what happens, watch the standings. Even when the Bills continue to win, they're still going to need to do that.
All right, so let's go through them because there's a lot of teams in the hunt right now, and it's this time of year. There's a lot of unknowns, a lot of matchups still left, a lot of divisional matchups still left. So some of these teams are pretenders, some of them are contenders, like legitimate, right? So two things I want to know on this: can this team that I'm about to put a graphic up for win a playoff game? And can they make the playoffs, right? So first, can they make the playoffs? Second, can they actually win a playoff game?
I like that.
Yes or no? Let's start with Jacksonville.
Oh.
Backup quarterback. You already mentioned it. Could they fall off? I think a high ankle sprain. I think we'll see Trevor Lawrence again before the playoffs, but definitely sets them back. Pretender or contender?
I mean, I like their roster overall and the way they've played and the way they've been coached. This year, it seems like, again, they're kind of the veteran team in the room now in terms of their division. I like where they've positioned themselves at this point, right? If, for example, the Bills, if we're going to use a Bills analogy here, were won a few of those games in this year already, then you'd be okay with them, losing a Matt Milano at this point in the season versus when we did early on. So to lose a player for a couple weeks now, when you've already positioned yourself to be in a good position, you have to trust that the backups can at least go 500. And I think that if you're the Jaguars, that definitely still gets you in the playoffs. So to me, they are a playoff contender. I think, even if the Texans find a way to jump them in the division, which will still be difficult, I think, that they'll end up as one of the wild card teams. So I do think they're a playoff contender.
Yeah, it looks like Jacksonville's 8-4, Houston's 7-5. Jacksonville coming off that loss. The next two games is the Browns and Ravens for Jacksonville.
Mm-hmm.
After that, it's Buccaneers, Panthers, Titans. So you got to think those last three, they should be wins, right? If you're a legitimate contender. These next two are going to be challenging, though, especially without Trevor Lawrence. So it wouldn't be too difficult for Houston to pop in there and steal that, that home playoff game. Can Jacksonville win a playoff game on the road? Let's say that.
Ooh, on the road. I mean, yes, their team is, if they got the right matchup, yes, right? So can Jacksonville beat Kansas City? Yes, I think so. The way those teams are playing right now this year, certainly. Yeah. I think that's actually what I predicted in the preseason. I'm going to have to go back and check that because, Jacksonville can beat Kansas City. So can Jacksonville? I'm trying to think of other teams other than the other wild card teams.
Baltimore, could they go into Baltimore and win?
No, I don't think. I think I'd take Baltimore in that matchup. But
and Miami again.
There's certain matchups. Miami, I think it matches up well for them, but they'd have to be at their best to beat Miami. Can they beat Miami? Yeah, sure. It wouldn't surprise me. Will they beat Miami in the playoff? I don't think I'd pick them. Let's put it that way, right? So,
all right. So you're saying contender for the Jacksonville?
Contender, though. Yeah, they are. They, especially once Trevor Lawrence is back, their ceiling is a lot higher, I think, than most give them credit for. So
right. I think you and I had them in the division and in the playoffs just because
I had them as the number one seed. Yeah.
Going into the season, we're looking at 2, maybe 3 rookie quarterbacks within the division. Mm-hmm. Anthony Richardson, CJ Stroud, Will Levis, right? But they turned out to be a lot better than we thought.
All 3 of them, really. And Richardson's out, obviously, now, but still.
And CJ Stroud, just a straight outlier at this point. So let's get to the next team here. How about the Seattle Seahawks?
Ooh.
Contender or pretender? I feel like we've seen kind of both sides of this coin so far this year with them. When they're at their best, they're one of the most balanced teams in the NFL.
Yeah.
Have concerns about Geno Smith, right? But defense is good. Devin Witherspoon, rookie cornerback, looks great for them. And then when Kenneth Walker's healthy,
correct,
he's top back in the league.
So that was going to be one of my major points here is I think when they've looked bad, it's been because key players have been out for them. That's still not a position you want to be in because every team has injuries and you're going to still have injuries going into the playoffs. But when they're healthy, they are definitely a contender. Remember that we were talking about them winning the division not too many weeks ago. And now obviously it looks like San Francisco is in what good position to do that. But
Right.
I
They're
do
tied with the
see
Rams, both 6-6 right now. Rams are actually ahead of them.
I do see them as a playoff contender and also as a team in the playoffs that can upset one of those top seeds, right? Everybody wants to say, oh, it's the Eagles and the 49ers and the Lions and everybody else. I think that none of those teams would want to go into the playoffs facing a Seattle team that is healthy, right? And knowing that, yes, they'll still be favored, but that's the team that if they start clicking on all cylinders, they can beat anybody pretty much. So I do think Seattle is a contender just based on their strength of their roster. They're well coached. Everything you want going into the playoffs, they have. They can run the ball. They can be dynamic on offense. Certainly a contender in my book.
Can they go to Detroit and win?
Yeah, I think so. They could.
Yeah, I could see that too. Like you said, they're one of the most balanced teams in the NFL. They just go through hot and cold streaks, and like you said, if there's a key player missing, it doesn't seem to. It kind of throws that balance off. It seems
Right.
like. Yeah, and I think Geno Smith's been good enough, but he hasn't been great. Right, so they're kind of stuck with that.
Exactly.
Will he get him over the top? Hard to tell at this point. I don't think they'll ever win a
He's
Super Bowl with Geno.
he's also very capable of having a huge game, though. It wouldn't surprise anybody if he had a 5-touchdown game, 2 rushing, 3 passing, right? Nobody's going to be like, oh, Geno Smith's capable of that. No, we know he's capable of that in certain situations. And, at the same time, he could put up a dud. And a lot of those games, they've relied on the running game, right? The running game has
Right.
made up for Geno Smith's.
Right, and opens up
in
play
the-
action, opens up this good receiving core right down the field. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. So that run game is key for them, no doubt about it. All right, next one, Minnesota Vikings, contender or pretender? Again, had the win streak, kind of a little bit of a setback the past few weeks, right?
Yes, right. Dobbs brought back down to earth a little bit, right, as at QB. However, I still love this roster. The fact that Justin Jefferson is coming back, they still have Addison, who I love. This is a team that on offense, they can get it done, and they've found a way on defense as well. They will make the playoffs, I think. I still have to maintain that.
Currently at the 6th seed in the NFC. They're just behind Dallas, and the record's the same as Green Bay, but Green Bay's that 7th seed because of the head-to-head.
Yeah, and I do think that, again, Minnesota will be in the playoffs. It's going to depend on the matchup because the problem that I see for Minnesota is they don't match up well against a lot of these playoff teams, especially those top seeds, again, whereas a Seattle, you're going to be afraid of their dynamic ability on both sides of the ball. Minnesota might be at a higher disadvantage going against a veteran good team like the 49ers, the Eagles, the Lions, so certainly they're capable and they will make the playoffs in my mind, and we'll see where it goes from there for them.
All right, all contenders so far. You had Jacksonville, Seattle, Minnesota. You called them all contenders.
Yes.
Keep that in mind. All right, Pittsburgh Steelers, playoff contender or pretender. Look, they have a huge advantage in record coming into Week 13. They lose to the Arizona Cardinals. We know about the offense, fired the offensive coordinator. Your quarterback gets injured. It's been very sloppy. Just in 2 weeks, their whole season seems to be turning around. Are they still contenders or are they pretenders? Can they win a playoff game?
This team is the very definition of pretender in my mind, right? They have way more wins than they ever should. They're always, going to be there just because of their coach. Pretty sure you and I could suit up for Mike Tomlin and he'd still find a way to get 8-9 or 9-8 because he just wins games. However, I think I already thought that the Pittsburgh Steelers were the most prime team to fall off, right? Because they are, in my mind, the worst well-rounded team, if that makes sense. The most unwell-rounded team of the contenders in the AFC, or of those in the hunt in the AFC, still alive in the AFC. They don't do anything well. They play defense well, I guess. They don't do anything else well. They don't run the ball well. They can't pass the ball well. Nobody's playing up to their ability. You cannot win games solely on that. And I think every time I've seen them on the field, there's nothing I get excited about on offense. Nothing. I have not, and I've watched a few of their games being on the East Coast in the Northeast. We get a lot of the Steelers games, and they just have been pathetic to watch. And I just keep saying every time I see them, this team doesn't belong here. They are, and they've put themselves in that position, and credit to the coach and the players for finding a way to win games 10-7, but you are the very definition in my mind of what a pretender is. Your record is better than what you are. When it comes down to the wire, your team is going to crack and they're not going to be there. So pretender.
All right, they're currently set at the 5 seed. They're the first wild card team. It is a 4-way tie as far as record.
Yeah,
between the Browns, Colts, Texans are all 7-5. But the Steelers have the head-to-head and AFC wins. So their remaining schedule, though, is an advantage for them because it's lighter than others, right? Patriots Thursday night this week. They're at the Colts, the Bengals, Seahawks, and Ravens. It's a little tough at the end there, but fair to say they're done. They going to make the playoffs or no?
They need help to make the playoffs. They could, though. If they win those games they're supposed to and lose the last 2, there's still a chance they're the 7 seed. But, I mean, if you're a playoff team, you're drooling at the opportunity to play the Steelers in the playoffs. Yeah, so you really hope they make that 7 seed over any of those other contenders. So, yes, there's a chance, unfortunately, based on what you said. But I no matter what, even if they make it, they're still pretenders because they don't belong there.
Yeah, so right now they would go at Jacksonville. If the playoffs started today, you don't think they can beat Jacksonville?
No, not a chance.
I don't think so either. All right, we got one pretender then. All right, next team, the Indianapolis Colts, playoff contender or pretender. Like we said, 7-5. They've now won 4 games in a row. Coaching's doing a hell of a job there. They're a physical team. They're scrappy. But yeah, like you said, they're limited on offense, I would say, as far as quarterback talent. And then Jonathan Taylor injured, right? So that doesn't help them. Different story if you have Jonathan Taylor. Contender or pretender?
This team is an anomaly, beyond belief. All season long, they've been doing this, right? They score a lot of points. They've been consistent. I think they're still the most consistent team in the NFL in scoring points. They average like 27 points a game or something, and the most consistent in the NFL, meaning they're not going 40 one game, 70 one game, and then nothing. No, they're getting points every game.
Yeah, 25 points a game. They're 8th in the league right now.
Yeah, but consistency-wise, I think they're number 1. But when you look at their defense, like that, who do they have on defense? Nobody, right? Like Colts defense doesn't exist, but they just don't give up a ton of points either. They haven't given up a 40-point game or above, right? So it's just like they're playing the most mediocre football, but it's coached in a way where your players and you say, you know what? Let's go ahead. We're going to give up 28 points this game, and we're going to find a way to score 30. And they get it done, right? However, that being said, this team, to me, is a pretender, right? Because they are the most likely, in my mind, to, again, fall off, right? Their quarterback is Gardner Minshew. He's got experience in the NFL, but he's not lighting anything up, right? Is not a guy who can carry the team on his back, in my mind. Their running back is their star player is hurt, right? Their defense, again, is not anything to write home about. So they're going to run into some tough matchups down the stretch where it's put up or shut up time. And although I think they'll win a couple, they're going to lose enough where if they make it, it's going to be the same story as Pittsburgh, right? It's going to be, okay, you're the 7 seed. You barely made it. Congratulations. You don't have a chance against any of these other playoff teams.
The stretch includes at Cincinnati, Steelers. The Steelers into Indy, 4:30 on Saturday, and then at Atlanta, Las Vegas, in Indianapolis, and then they end the season versus the Texans. So yeah,
interesting to say the least.
Seems like all those teams are evenly matched with the Colts. I would put them at 500, although there's 5 games. Let's say they win 3, lose 2. Right? I think
that's enough to get in for them.
Enough. That's enough.
Yeah.
But if you win 2 and lose 3, you're not in, right? And back to your point about consistency. That's true. They've scored double digits in every game except for they've scored over 10 in every game, but not more than,
Yeah, unbelievably
the highest is
consistent.
31.
Crazy.
No, 38. I see a 38. But yeah, I see what you're saying though. Very consistent, not a lot of volatility when it comes to scoring.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. But yeah, can they win a playoff game right now? They'd have to go to Baltimore. No chance. I don't want to watch backup quarterbacks in the playoffs. I'm sorry.
And I mean, and they scored 2 special teams touchdowns this week. I mean, it wasn't their offense. It's just finding a way to get it done, and they've been able to do that. And that might carry them into the playoffs, but that'll be the end of the line for them. They're going to be down at the bottom of the "Are we going to make it?" crew.
All right, playoffs, contender or pretender, Cincinnati Bengals. Played a good game the other night.
Yeah.
Jake Browning looked pretty good. Joe Mixon could still run the football.
The fact that we're still talking about the Cincinnati Bengals is a miracle. Okay, they start the season with an injured Joe Burrow, garbage. Everybody's hurt. Oh, our record's bad, but they come back. They start playing their best football, and then they lose Joe Burrow again, and then everybody's banged up again, and they're just again hanging in there, and that's enough for this team right now. They're very well coached. They're playing very well, up to their ability, which is always good. The team itself, the roster, their defense, and what they have on offense makes them a contender in my mind, meaning they should make the playoffs as one of these wild card teams with the matchups they have down the stretch. They play Indy, right? I think you said they play Pittsburgh again. So they have matchups against what I would consider inferior rosters.
They also play the Browns and the Chiefs.
Yeah, so they
matchup. So yeah, all good for the Bills, right? That those matchups are going on.
Yes, right. So there's going to be some butting head to head here and shuffling around with these teams. However, of the 3 that we've done for the AFC, I really think here the Bengals are the ones that are contenders because they have the best roster, because they have the best ceiling, the highest ceiling, even with a backup quarterback in. Yeah, and that's enough in my mind for them to maintain and hopefully get the 7th seed and knock those other 2 teams out, right? That's an ideal scenario for me. I still don't think they're going to win a playoff game with a backup quarterback because they'd have to play a gauntlet of teams, Baltimore, I think was one you said.
Yeah.
But even, if it ends up being the Chiefs, let's say, or the,
can they go to Jacksonville and win?
They could actually, with depending on how that shakes out. I do think that this roster could make that happen, but it's still I wouldn't pick them to be favored in that. So I don't think that they will win a playoff.
I feel like we're going to learn a lot more about this team, right? They go into Kansas City. They always play Kansas City tough. Joe Burrow likely the difference maker there, but we'll see, right? If they can, play good defense versus Kansas City and beat Kansas City, they have a good shot to get in.
Kansas City is very beatable right now. So yeah.
Right. So that's the real test. And, that'll be a really good game, regardless of Joe Burrow's situation. I know it'll be a little lopsided on offense, but I think Kansas City is beatable, like you said. So it's I'm not going to count the Bengals out. I don't think they're going to make a Super Bowl run or go deep in the playoffs, championship game, anything like that.
Right.
But I would not be shocked if they get in. It's a good roster, right?
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of that, Cleveland Browns, also a good roster. Contender or pretender?
This team is also a contender in my mind. Their defense is without a doubt one of the best in the league. They faltered a little bit the past couple weeks here, but that can get them far just based on their defense. What I have liked about this team too is their ability to run the ball. They lost Nick Chubb early. They've been able to still establish themselves as a team that wants to run the ball with Ford and others there, right? Same with the quarterback position. You're taking a big drop off going from Deshaun Watson, but they've been able to do enough, in my mind, to stay in the hunt and position themselves as, okay, we're that team that has the best defense and a capable offense that can be carried by the defense, right? Whereas the Steelers, even though they have a good defense, their offense is completely inept and cannot be carried by the defense alone. So that's the comparison for me that does make them a contender, but I do think they're going to be fighting for that 7th seed, if anything else. Without a doubt, 3 of these teams are going to make it, right? So that's the thing. Yeah, you
This
gotta
feels
have
a
3
little
of them.
bit like the Jets to me. Like the Browns have now lost 2 in a row, and both of those games have been 30 points or more. The Broncos were 29. The Rams scored 36 on them.
Mhm.
At some point, the defense just gets completely worn out and gets frustrated with the offense, and they shut down. Right? I got a little sense of that going on right now. Because if you're a playoff team, these are games you should have won. Right? And I got it. You know, the Broncos are in the hunt as well. The Rams are in the hunt, but the Browns haven't made the playoffs in so long. The fan base is amped. You have the best defense in the league, I think. These are games you got to win, right? Because now you're on the verge of you got Jacksonville, you got to go to Houston, and then you got to go to Cincinnati as the last game of the year, and you have to win those to get in. And there's a real chance they could blow it.
Yes, but they're still contending with the Bengals. If they beat the Bengals that game, that might be enough for them to get the 7th seed and the Bengals still to get the 6th seed. So it's very possible. But yeah, I do think they're competing for that 7th spot. If Indy beats them and Indy wins a few games, that could be the downfall of the Browns, right? So the combinations here are insane because a lot of these teams
Right,
play each other down the stretch.
right. Those games
So
are so important.
it's going to be a lot of back and forth. Whoever it is 2 weeks from now is not going to be who it is at the end of the season. So it's really
Yeah.
interesting to keep an eye on.
Last question on the Browns: can they go to Kansas City and win? If the
No,
playoffs started today, that would be the matchup.
I would say no. So
Yeah,
that would
same.
be I would be mad because the Chiefs would get a playoff win there.
Yeah, it's always easy for them. All right, Broncos. We talked about a little bit earlier. Just keep somehow get in a position to win the game at the end, and a lot of times they've done that. They did have a five game win streak, which puts them in our conversation here, but lost a close one last week. Are they good enough to A, get to the playoffs, B, win a playoff game?
No, is the short answer for me. So I do think that they are pretenders, although they've been able to beat teams and play teams tough, some good teams too, including our Bills, and have the head-to-head with teams like our Bills. They have shown now they've come back down to earth, right? They played really well for a stretch. They've come back down to earth. You can't be the Minnesota Vikings of last year and win all these close games, right? And in these 4-game win streak they had, they were winning tight games. It was not like they were running away with everything. And it was, make the right play on offense, push the right buttons, let the defense play well, get a lot of takeaways. That you can't rely on that every game. You just can't. Your offense has to be potent enough to carry you every once in a while. And in this past game, we saw that Russell Wilson is capable of making mistakes that will end or cost you a game. So I just think that combination makes them a pretender more than a contender. They can serve spoiler though. So I do think they could win a few games down the stretch that could spoil a few of these teams' seasons, but it's not going to be putting them in the playoffs.
Yeah, they're still, this has been the conversation all year. They're 27th in the league in passing, 25th in total offense. But yeah, finding a way to win, probably good coaching with a subpar roster, right? Early in the season, they were 32nd in the league on defense for a long time. I think they've been better since their bye week. They're in the conversation. They have to play the Chargers twice. And I want to say, pull it up here. There's couple other tough matchups.
Yeah,
Ultimately, I don't think they make it.
Even if they split with the Chargers, who are, obviously
Okay,
a faltering team, they're going to you lost me?
Nope, we're good.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, yep. They got Chargers this weekend, then they're at Detroit, Saturday night game. They host the Patriots December 24th. Chargers again in Denver, and then they finish the season at Las Vegas.
Ooh.
I don't think they can beat the Chargers, though. I'm going to be real with you.
Yeah, I mean, it depends, right? When do they fire the coach? Because that's a team that only put up 6 points against a faltering New England team. So you can't, and that's par for the course for the Chargers. You can't trust them, right? So I just don't trust that they're going to.
There's a good chance they get out coached, like the Broncos out coached the Chargers.
Correct.
Right. And that's kind of been the story of the Chargers the rest of the year.
Mm-hmm. And that could
again, if you look at the rosters on paper, it just doesn't, Justin Herbert, the way he's been playing, But Russell Wilson it's not been good enough. And it's been a lot better this year. It's still not good enough for what we know him as in Seattle or what they paid him to be. To me, it's still below average or where he should be. Can they win a playoff game if they make it?
Ugh. I mean, they've got the best luck in the NFL, so maybe, but doubtful.
A lot of it, right?
I'd say no.
All right. Got 3 more here. Let's do it with the Rams. Sean McVay led Rams. Matt Stafford making rookie receivers look like superstars. Contender, pretender. Currently, they're tied with Seattle. They actually have the head-to-head lead over Seattle, so they're second in the AFC West behind San Francisco. They currently hold a playoff spot. No, they do not. They're 1 game out of the playoffs.
Yeah. If you're talking, is this team legit playoff contender? Can they make the playoffs? Yes. And this is another team that I think if they make it in the NFC isn't going to be happy about this matchup, right? You don't want to play a Rams team with an electric coach, with an offense that has multiple weapons, with a defense that has arguably one of the best to ever play the defensive position, right? So I think that combination makes them a dangerous team in the minds of the NFC playoff picture. It's an uphill battle for them because they're on the outside looking in, and I think those teams that are currently in have better opportunities to stay in, right? So they need help, and I think that's ultimately what could keep them out.
Yeah, they've won 3 in a row. Big test this weekend at Baltimore. Baltimore coming off a bye week. Then they have the Commanders, Saints, Giants, and then they finish the season at San Francisco.
Yeah, so you're talking 3-2. That's where you want to be, but is that going to be enough? That means they need multiple teams to lose more than half the games. I mean, go 2-3.
Currently a 4-way tie at 6-6. Vikings, Packers, Rams, Seahawks.
Mm-hmm.
The Rams do have the head-to-head versus the Seahawks, but they're behind the Packers and the Vikings. Not sure if the Packers and Vikings play each other. Pull that up quick.
In my mind, the most likely to fall off that list is the Packers. So, I mean, if the Packers, because they've been hot and cold, they've been hot, but we've seen that they're not, they're beatable. So I think if the Packers end up faltering a little bit, that could be where the Rams sneak in. But I do think that the most likely scenario is staying put with those playoff teams.
All right, let's get with the Packers since we mentioned it. Like I said, 6-6. They're in that 4-way tie in the NFC. Currently, they're 7th in the wild card, 7th seed. They would play San Francisco if the playoffs started today. Here's what's interesting about the Packers. They're coming off a huge win at home versus Kansas City. They have momentum now, no doubt. They're at the Giants Monday night this week. They host the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Then they're at Carolina. Big game versus the Vikings. Ultimately will decide, which team gets in, which doesn't. And then they finish the season hosting the Bears. Very winnable games for them.
Yeah, but if you lose to the Vikings and the Bears down the stretch and the Rams are able to go 3-3 or 3-2, then you're talking the same record, right? So they would, Rams go 3-2, Green Bay goes 2-3, then the Rams would jump them, correct? I believe so, right? So that's where
that one game versus Minnesota would be huge, yeah.
Right. So I do think that they have the edge in 3 of those games, but Bears are going to play them tough, right? And know, like, okay, we know this team. It's a tough matchup for both of those teams, but I think that that could be the Browns or the Bears playoff, basically, right? They're not making the playoffs. They've got the 2 top 5 picks. They're going to play for their football lives and play the best we've ever seen them in that last matchup, potentially. And what I think is going to happen is Green Bay is going to get knocked out of the playoffs in that situation.
Okay. Now, if they do make it, can they go to Detroit and win in the playoffs?
No, I don't think so. Not in a playoff scenario. We saw on Thanksgiving, yes, they got the best of them, but I just think that that's a totally different thing. Going into the playoffs, the Lions are going to want it more, are going to need it more. They're
new experience for Jordan Love, right? New experience for all the young receivers.
And ultimately, it comes down to who has a better team there, and it's to me, it's the Lions all the way around.
All right, so you're calling pretender on the Packers, even after the huge win.
Yeah.
All right, last one of the night. Had to do it. Buffalo Bills, contender or pretender. We've talked about it. I've done the ESPN playoff machine probably 90 times in the last 2 weeks. And there's my results from all my samples. 10-7 likely gets you in.
Yeah.
Which means you can lose one more game and that's it.
Yeah.
If you win out and Miami loses to Baltimore and Dallas, very reasonable, you have a chance to win the division. The division would come down to the Miami game week 18.
Correct.
If you go to 9-8, it's extremely difficult to get the Bills in. You need a lot of help.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, the results are you can only lose one more game.
Mm-hmm.
And you got at Kansas City, Dallas at home, Chargers on Saturday night, the Patriots, and then you finish the season with Miami. Need one loss.
Yeah, and I again, that's one loss less than what I've predicted, right? Weeks ago, I'm talking about when we went over the matchup, I said there's the one matchup. The Eagles was the toughest matchup of all of them in my mind. I think we pair up well against Kansas City. We're coming off the bye. We have to win that game. The Dallas game is in Buffalo. I think we match up well against them. I think that's a win. The other two will be favored in, and then it's, Miami. What the more interesting scenario in my mind is we could be 4-0 in those 4 games, going into the last game versus Miami with a chance to win the division, but also a chance to not make the playoffs, which is crazy, right? You win the game, you win the division, you're the 3 seed with 11 wins. You lose the game, you're out with 10 wins. That is not an ideal scenario to be in. So I hope it does not come down to that. And again, it might favor us that a lot of those teams in contention will be playing each other. Right. But just like you said, in the playoff, in the ESPN playoff generator, there is a combination where a bunch of those teams end up with 10 wins and the Bills are at the bottom. So let's hope that isn't the case. But
there's a chance you get to 10 and don't make it. That's also true.
Correct.
But all those teams have backup quarterbacks. So that's the big thing is like you're really banking on a loss that one of these teams is supposed to win. Right. And then that's just how it goes. What's interesting about Buffalo, though, if they get in, they can go to Baltimore and win. They can go to Kansas City and win. They can go to Jacksonville and win. And then go to Miami and win.
Nobody would want to play the Bills going into the playoffs. That's for sure. And that they're the toughest team there. In all of these AFC contenders, by far, the Bills are the best of that bunch. And they are, in my mind, a better roster than a team like Kansas City, than a team like Miami, who just they beat
and
Miami.
If you go to Jacksonville, it's a backup quarterback. We're also assuming that Tua and Lamar Jackson stay healthy the rest of the season. Knock on wood. We want to see them play, no doubt about it. But historically, we just haven't seen that. They haven't played full seasons in the last number of years. So very interesting. If you can get there, are they? We're talking Super Bowl, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's in the conversation.
Immediate Super Bowl contenders.
Deep playoffs. But again, you got to get there first. And
put up or shut up, man. Put up or shut up.
Yeah.
We'll have lots to talk about on Thursday with that. That's for sure.
Right. It could be, just don't get too riled up because this could be a very disappointing season, right? Like you said, they could beat Kansas City, lose to Dallas, then go on a 2-game win. And if you beat Miami, you're in. They could lose. And you don't make it in, and that's it. That's a wrap. And that'd be
tough.
Another Buffalo legend, Buffalo lost legend.
That's right.
In the books.
That would be.
Or lore, Buffalo lore, Buffalo football lore.
There you go. That's the history. Yeah. It'd be the most Buffalo thing to ever happen. So, but let's avoid that scenario by winning.
I was going to play some music to speed up our cash and trash, but it's affecting your audio, so I'm going to go ahead and skip that. But let's go to cash or trash. The Patriots have a new coach quarterback combo to start the season in 2024.
Ooh. I'm still going to say trash. I don't think they have the guts to fire Belichick. I don't think it's clear they're going to have a new quarterback, but I just don't think they have the guts to fire him. And maybe they'll draft a new quarterback and, Belichick still finds a way to falter. And then they're like, okay, it's time, old man, to see yourself out.
So you say new quarterback, but not new coach.
Correct. So I'm going to say is trash because I don't think they have a new coach. And it would probably benefit our Bills if they don't have a new coach. So I'm going to go with that one.
Right. Well, it's a rookie quarterback doesn't save the season right away, right? It takes a number of years. So I don't think we see Belichick competitive again in New England because you're talking 3-year turnaround, 4-year turnaround.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think it's not a one-off season rebuild for New England. They need multiple seasons. But getting Drake May or somebody like that's a great start, right? That's a huge upgrade as far as athleticism from Mac Jones. You can do a lot more things. Drake May, very much a modern type quarterback, 6'4", can run, can throw it anywhere. Huge, he's aggressive with the football. Don't want to see him in New England, but that'd be a good start. I say new quarterback and coach. Seems it's gone stale there. There's so many rumors flying. It's just getting weird at this point. If they keep him, the rumors are going to continue to get worse and become a distraction. It's just going to get worse and worse, right? So I think
keep him.
Time. Yeah. All right, 3 more. Cash or trash, the Bears cut or trade Justin Fields this offseason.
This one has to be cash for me. I just think there has never been a franchise in a better position than the Bears to completely reset. You could fire your GM, fire your coach, fire your owner, fire anybody you want. You have 2 top 5 picks. You're an instant contender, basically, right? You have the guys on your roster that have been there. You have veterans you can sign and play with salary cap or whatever. Bring in a whole new team. Take those 2 top picks. You're going to get 2 players that are, franchise type players in this coming draft. I think it's inevitable that they have to move on from Fields, to no fault of Fields, right? I do think that he will have value to some teams. Somebody will trade for a Justin Fields.
Sure.
Now, are they going to get
the Raiders? Would be a good fit for him.
Yeah, why not? Right? I mean, there's plenty of teams out there that could use a quarterback of that caliber. He's not, a top 5 quarterback in my mind, but he's capable. He's done things. If you can build a team around him that's worth putting together, maybe we could see his full potential. And that's why I think, it's time to move on. It's inevitable they're moving on, but Justin Fields will have life again in the NFL.
Right. And I think Justin Fields goes to a team like Atlanta, right? That'd be a great fit for him, and he'll get another chance. He deserves another chance in a better team, better maybe offensive coach, because he's just too good. He's too talented, and we'll go from there. I don't think we'll ever see him be a good passer. Hesitates way too much. And now, a number of years into his NFL career, you're still seeing problems. But some quarterbacks do develop it late. Geno Smith's a guy like that, struggled early, and now seems to be much more comfortable in his later years. Bears, though, the rumors were Caleb Williams wasn't sure if he's going to go back to school or not. He wanted to see who was going to have the number 1 pick, blah, 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 blah. 1 week later, he's sitting out from the bowl game. He's going pro. He's probably comfortable with the Bears at this point. So I think that's locked in. You're going to hear all kinds of smoke and all kinds of stuff about Caleb Williams. He's going to the Bears. It's over.
There you go.
All right, cash or trash. The NFC is currently better than the AFC. Going into the season, the storyline was the AFC so much better than the NFC. Seems to have flipped a little bit. The best teams in the league are clearly the Philadelphia Eagles and the 49ers. Any team in the AFC that's better than those 2? Baltimore, maybe.
They look like that because they play NFC opponents, right? That's the whole point here. You're talking full conference, NFC versus AFC. I'm still taking the AFC, right? I will take the Colts to beat most of the playoff teams, wildcard teams in the NFC, right? Green Bay, I'll take the Colts. You want Minnesota, I'd probably take the Colts, and I have the Colts out of the playoffs in the AFC. So you put a team like, I don't know, the Browns, the Bengals, and obviously injuries play a major role. So the AFC has had by far more devastating injuries than the NFC this year. And that brings them down to earth a little bit, but I'm still taking AFC over NFC in my mind.
Yeah, that's interesting because there is a lot of young quarterback talent in the AFC, and the NFC seems to be lacking in that area. But the top guys aren't there. Like, okay, Pat Mahomes, it's a step back for the Chiefs this year. I know 4 losses is a step back, but that is what it is. Traditionally, they'd have 1 or 2 losses at this point in the season. The Bills are 6-6, and Joe Burrow's out of it. They're 6-6, 7-6. So it's they're 6-6. But it's not the 3 quarterback race that we thought it was going to be between Burrow, Allen, and Mahomes. If you want to throw Trevor Lawrence in there, maybe. More to be seen there, in my opinion. But it's more the complete teams. The Miami Dolphins playing good offense, good defense. The Baltimore Ravens playing good defense, good offense. That's more the storyline this year. It's less about the quarterbacks. But we'll see. When time comes around, the quarterbacks matter a lot more. Making those plays, it'll be a lot more fun to watch. And the NFC there's no surprises. Everyone thought Detroit would be good. We knew that Philadelphia was going to be good. We knew that San Francisco was going to be good, and that's about it. There's really the biggest surprise is maybe the Giants losing so many games.
That's what I was going to bring up. That the Giants most probably thought they would be a playoff team, and they're not. Right? Dallas, I think most people had them in there. Minnesota, certainly I had them in there. Green Bay, maybe some people, I certainly didn't have them there, but some people.
I think they're doing about what we expected.
Yeah. That's, we knew they weren't going to be blowing anybody out of the water.
Right.
So, yeah, I would agree that the expectations are mostly there in the NFC, but the records are also, despicable too. It's not, these aren't the contenders for the wild card teams are just bad record wise. And we'll see, there's still a lot of games left. But I have a feeling that the AFC record-wise is going to end up around 10 wins, like we said, minimal to make the playoffs. And in the NFC, it feels like, you could get in with 9, maybe 8. So it's interesting to say the least.
7 of the top 10 teams in the draft right now, top 10 picks are NFC teams.
There you go. That tells you what you need to know.
But they're going to get all the quarterbacks. So here we go, right? Anyway, fun conversation. All right, last one of the night, cash or trash. The Lions win a playoff game for the first time since ever. No, they won one before.
They have won one playoff game in the NFL era. So since 1956, I think it was. It's 1957. So the NFL merger was in the 60s. Since then, the Detroit Lions have one playoff victory and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 playoff losses. So they are 1 in 12 in the playoffs
this
since
year.
The NFL merger. Yes, I do. This was a preseason prediction of mine that the Lions will win a playoff game, and I'm holding to that still. They will be the 3 seed in my mind, and I think they will win a playoff game. They'll have a good matchup against one of those lower seeded opponents coming in as a wild card, and they will, take care of business and get at least a win. Now, I only have them winning one game, unfortunately, but they will win a playoff game.
Yeah, I don't think they match up well versus San Francisco or Philadelphia, but I think anybody else they can certainly win, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's gonna be really fun. Detroit at San Francisco for the championship game. Let's say San Francisco beats the Philadelphia Eagles.
Mm-hmm. That'd be interesting.
Likely wouldn't play each other, but that'd be dream scenario. The Lions get to the Super Bowl. That could be a lot of fun too, right?
Wow, that would be an epic story for sure.
Yes, that would be everything the Bills ever wanted.
Lions versus the Bills. There you go. That's the match made in heaven, right there.
I think envy would kick in because the first year you're good, you make it to the Super Bowl, it'd be unbelievable.
Yeah, right. Be like, no, man, go back to 17 years without even getting to the playoffs.
All right, big game for the Buffalo Bills this weekend. You can tune in with us on Thursday as we're going to get into all the details of the Kansas City game. It's a must win. It's almost a bad scenario for the Bills. You have to go to Kansas City after they come off an embarrassing loss. They're going to be ready. They're going to bring their best game. And, the Bills are going to bring their best game. This is really turning out to be – it's setting up to be one of the best games of the season, I think.
Yes.
There's so much on the line here.
Yeah, and again, I feel good about coming into this matchup. Sean McDermott's 6-0 coming off the bye. I just feel like the team itself, the way the Bills were playing, even though they lost versus the Eagles, there's a lot to look at the positives. And Kansas City looks like they can be exploited in different ways, and the Bills are going to be able to do that, I feel. So we'll talk a lot more about this matchup, but I'm still feeling good about it, even though it should be as always, a good competitive game.
Yeah, it's going to be, arguably two of the top 3 quarterbacks in the league. At this point, maybe top 2.
Mm-hmm.
Pure quarterback play, not system play, like Tua,
The ratings will be there for this one. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, because we're talking like statistically who are the best quarterbacks in the league. I think you got to put Tua in the conversation. We can put Jalen Hurts in the conversation. But, I mean, pure quarterback talent, athleticism, it's got to be Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes, right? So it's going to be a really fun day. And the Bills can afford to lose one more. So
not this one.
Don't put all of them into this one. This, it'd be better to lose to Dallas than Kansas City, but or just win them all. That's fine with me too.
That's exactly where you want to be. You win them all, you would control your own fate that way.
Right. So playoffs start this weekend for the Bills, and here we go. Be sure to tune in with us Thursday, and thanks for tuning in with us.